Here we have another mystery model steam engine. This one came from the States. I have a feeling it was probably commercially made as opposed to being scratch built. It's missing the cylinder and the piston. There is a safety valve in the top. This chimney unscrews and the safety valve in there, although the spring is missing off of the safety valve. And obviously it's meant to have some sort of burner which goes underneath the base plate. But no, again, an intriguing model. I've not seen one like it before. I know nothing about it. There's no manufacturer's name on here or anything. But it will clean up nicely and it should be fairly simple to make a cylinder piston for it and get this one going. So yeah, it's quite heavy, so I don't know what the boiler's made out of, but it's certainly quite substantial. And again, if anyone knows anything about this engine, can identify it, please let me know in the comments. I'm always very grateful for any information that you guys out there can provide. So yeah, for the moment we'll just call this a mystery American model steam engine. Well, since shooting that first segment, when I first got the engine, I have now actually managed to identify it. It is apparently a Corrigan and Higgins improved model number 101 model steam engine. Yeah, and I've managed to find a photograph, well it's a picture actually, an advertising picture of this engine, and I'll put that up later on in the video. But yes, so it is no longer a mystery engine, it is a Corrigan and Higgins improved model number 101. Well, it's the Corrigan and Higgins improved model number 101 engine. What a mouthful for a very small engine. I've finally got back into the workshop. We've had some extremely hot weather here in the UK. Up in my backyard I saw 40 degrees at one point, and it's been very, very humid. So I've kind of stayed out of the workshop. In that kind of weather, I think really all you can do is, well, drink beer and go to sleep, really. Anyway. Today, back in the workshop, and I've made the cylinder, piston, and conrod end for it. Now, I only managed to find a couple of pictures that weren't particularly great of this engine online, so I've had to guesstimate a lot of things. But using those pictures, they clearly show that it had a square section cylinder, looked like it was made out of aluminium, so that's what I've made this one from. And also using the machined port face and those pictures, I've kind of guesstimated the dimensions, and it looked like 5/8 square section for the cylinder was about right. And after measuring things up and like trying stuff, about 1 5/8 for the length of the cylinder. Now I have no idea what size the piston is. Obviously you can't see that from the photographs. So, but these little engines, or engines of this size, generally just have fairly small pistons. So I went for 1/4 inch. So I bored and reamed it cylinder 1/4 inch. I made a 1/4 inch piston up for it. That's basically it. The stroke you can work out because you know the distance between the center of the crank here and the pivot point, and that was 1/4 inch. So that gives you a 1/2 inch stroke. So that's fairly easy to work out. So yes, it's all together. It turns nice and freely. You can just see it uncovering the exhaust port here. So what else did we do? Oh yes, the safety valve. I've repainted the little dummy chimney, and the safety valve, which is this brass lump in the top here, was missing a spring. So I've added a spring to that, and it seems to be, about right. It's very difficult to tell with these things unless you pressure test them, but I always go on the how a Mammoth safety valve feels for a sort of engine of this size, and that's going to be about right. So you want it to release about 15 16 psi, something like that. So yeah, it's all done. It's ready to try. I've given the rest of it a good clean up, and so now all we've got to do is steam it. Originally, from the pictures, this thing had some sort of electric heater which was underneath. But I'm probably gonna put it up on some Fibrix, and then I can use a small sort of one of these small round meths burners to actually heat it. So yeah, we're ready to go. Next stage, steam up. Okay, so well, as you can probably quite clearly see, I have the Corrigan and Higgins improved model number 101 engine connected up to my little air tank. Now, I did try steaming it and I had some issues which we'll talk about in a minute, but I thought you might like to see it running, so let's get the compressor started. And my piston and cylinder seemed to work quite well. You let the thing get some pressure build up, but it will run quite happily. The gauge on the air tank, which is, you can't see, it's behind here, is reading about 10 psi, and it runs quite nicely. That's just 10 psi. Obviously it's very quiet. All you can hear is the compressor running, but yes, it runs well, so I'm quite pleased about that. My guesses with regarding the cylinder and piston and com rod seem to work out quite well. So a quick close up on that, you can see. Yes, runs very nicely. So I think I was probably fairly close. As I said, I still don't really know what size the piston was in the original one, but you know, given the size of the engine, a 1/4 inch is quite nominal for engines of this size. So yeah, there you go, running very nicely. Let's turn the compressor off. Okay, so what happened when I tried to run it on steam? Well, I had several burners which would fit. If we have a look underneath, you can see that there is a hole. Now I'm beginning to think that that hole that's been cut in the base was probably not there originally, and someone has cut that, because it's not a particularly accurately well-rounded hole. It just looks like someone's cut it. But anyway, I had 2 or 3 burners, one of which was a gas burner, which I put underneath there, and none of them would create enough steam to actually run the engine. Well, as you can see, it runs off of 10 psi of air, so it doesn't need an awful lot of steam pressure. So I started to think about this, and I couldn't really immediately come up with any kind of answer to that. But this is a very heavy boiler, and it's far heavier than it should be for its size. And also, in the only photograph I can actually find online of this engine, as I said previously, it was very definitely electrically heated. So I did wonder that it's got this mysterious little tube that sticks out of the bottom of the boiler here. And I did wonder whether or not that might have been where the electrical cable went in, although it's actually quite a small diameter. And maybe there is an electrical heater inside. There's no obvious way of getting this boiler apart. So if it's in there, it's been sealed in there. So then my thoughts were, maybe there's a ceramic element in here with either a cartridge type heater or possibly a coiled wire heater. And then the bottom of the boiler, the actual boiler, is probably only about here. That would then cause basically an insulator block between any heat you put up through the bottom and the actual bottom of the boiler where the water actually is. Once I kind of worked this out, I thought, well, okay, if that's the case, if I put a flame onto the boiler about here where there definitely is water, and I just used a small kitchen torch, I should be able to generate steam. And sure enough, when I did that, this ran absolutely fine on steam being generated that way. So yes, my conclusions are that there is a heater in here. As I said, the picture that I found online, actually I'll tell you what, I'll throw the picture up now, okay? Right, so as you can see from that picture, there very definitely is a electrical cable, but it's not obvious where it goes in. But that's what I think's happening. So I thought, right, okay, we'll make an adapter, and that was fun. This is a most peculiar thread. This is the thread in the top of this boiler is 932 BSF, which is a very old ball kind of thread. But anyway, made an air adapter for it, and as you can see, it runs absolutely fine on air. So that's really about it for the Corrigan and Higgins improved model number 101. if anyone has any information out there, if anyone has one of these, that would be fantastic, particularly if it's got a functioning element, heating element in it. Please get in touch, because I'd really like to know some more information about it. But for now, that's it. We'll start the compressor again, let it build up a little bit of pressure, and then we'll get it running. Yeah, it's a strange one. I'm pleased that my my attempt to get the you know, to make the cylinder and piston and conrod and everything worked out okay. Obviously, it's fairly straightforward to make a cylinder when it's simply square section. That's very easy, but yeah, it runs very well. Right, that's about it for this little one. An interesting one, and as I said, I really would like to know more about this. If anyone has any info on it, please let me know. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. Cheers.